Recently I discovered that there exists a Felix the Cat feature-length film, so of course I had to watch it. It's both great and terrible, so buckle up, it's gonna be a bumpy ride. Okay, so we are graded by the production logos of two pretty big companies. These are Lakeshore International and New World Pictures, which really heighten your expectations. Following this is a bizarre 3D animated Felix head that is accompanied by a knockoff Mickey Mouse voice. This is the voice you're stuck with the whole movie, so you better get used to it.
You see, I just got back from the land of Oriana. Never been there? That doesn't surprise me. They don't have an airport.
Oh boy. We are then introduced to the mentioned kingdom, and it's being attacked by this evil robot army led by a guy with a dome for a head. In this segment, the movie's main flaw becomes very visible, the lip syncing.
My duty, of course, is to remain here. I will delay them for as long as I can. I'm old. They won't harm me. Not much, anyway. Quickly, go now!
Their mouth movements are nowhere near matching the spoken dialogue. This is really odd considering how well animated this is. Anyways, the Queen flees to something called the Demence Porter, and sends an SOS to Felix, who is in another dimension. This SOS strangely bears a heavy resemblance to Navi from Ocarina of Time.
Hey, look! Up here!
Wow!
Meanwhile, in the dramatic bad guy lair, the two scientists, that I believe are from the 1959 Felix cartoons, are spying on him, and decide to follow him to get his magic bag of tricks.
Yes, the bag! I've always wanted that bag!
Felix then turns his bag into a helmet and parachute to go dive into a pit after the fairy thing.
Felix Skydivers Incorporated.
He said without moving his lips.
Wow!
This pit has a gold mine at the bottom where Felix makes a joke about a corpse starving to death.
Boy, could you use a Big Mac.
Felix's jokes throughout this movie are usually just corny, but this one's a little messed up and it might even be breaking some copyright laws. Felix then enters the dimensional transporter, making this hilarious noise. As he stumbles around the Demence Porter, the image of Queen Oriana is shown to Felix briefly. He then realizes that the only way out of this room is sealed, so he turns his bag into a drill. When he drills through the wall, however, the room quickly fills with water and a bunch of wacky creatures. Felix turns his bag into a scuba suit, he swims away from a water monster and ends up in a strange swamp. Here he meets this weird hillbilly guy who leads him towards civilization. There are also these things called turbals that are carnivorous plants. One of these swallows Felix in its gooey body. The hillbilly shoots the turbal and pulls Felix ashore, where he is then captured by evil robots. Meanwhile, the two scientists re-explain that Felix has stumbled into another dimension.
You mean Felix has actually managed to fall into another dimension?
They get into their vehicle and head for the kingdom of Oriana. Meanwhile, Felix is put into a cell and the hillbilly talks to this horribly drawn green guy, who carries a living baton, which is also horribly drawn. The green guy is a circus ringmaster with yet another terrible voice actor. He makes a joke about the hillbilly's height, which may or may not be about his size.
And what in Zill have you got to be excited about? Someone invent enlarging pills?
I'll let you decide on that one. The hillbilly shows Felix's bag to the ringmaster, but since it can't work without Felix, he thinks the old guy is crazy. He's threatened to be sent to the flea pits, but tells Green Man the bag could mean serious money if the cat uses it, so he's let off. Over in the swamp, the two scientists are attacked by a dinosaur. Poindexter ends up using a shrink ray on it, and they immediately after crash into a tree. Back at the circus, the ringmaster sees that Felix can talk and use the magic bag. He's then forced to work for food by performing in the circus. Felix is also tossed back into a cell where he first meets the mouse-lizard hybrids, called Mizzards.
Lizards? Mice? Oh, lizards!
Following this is a bizarre musical number in which the Duke of Zill, this guy, is heavily bragged about.
Who is the boss?
The Mizzards then unexplainably tap dance and clone themselves for way too long. Following their act is Felix's. He tells some bad jokes, and the crowd boos. So he just does tricks with his magic bag, and Green Guy makes him not ever tell jokes again.
But you're no good with jokes. I don't want you should make any more jokes. Your jokes are...
Felix then asks the ringmaster if he's allowed to watch the captive princess act. Said act is, for some reason, her dancing in giant bubbles. After the act, Felix is thrown back into a cell. Meanwhile, the scientists are wandering around and making lame jokes.
Fascinating. Exactly my deduction. A sooty city.
Back in Felix's cell, he makes friends with the Mizzards, which have been eating tunnels through the building. Felix wants to meet Princess Oriana, so they make him a Felix-shaped tunnel in the wall. He watches sleeping circus animals for a moment, and then moves on to Oriana's room. Felix then tells her that he was led there by the SOS glowy drop thingy. They plan on breaking out during Felix's act the next day. She also tells Felix about the origin of Zill. He wears the dome and the robotic parts because he was disfigured during a lab accident. The Duke of Zill was banished for his radical ideas and treasonistic actions. You know, like building robots to try and overthrow the monarchy. Normal stuff. In the swamp, the Duke met creatures there that followed him loyally, and they built a robot army, which helped him achieve his goal of taking over the land. There's also something about a briefly mentioned magic book, but it's kind of important later on. Just when you thought that hillbilly guy exited the plot, he comes back, and he joins the escape party.
Let's just say that I've had my belly full of Mr. Lizardi and his bossing me around like I was some kind of puppet on a string.
Later, the scientists disguise their way into the circus tent. They do this without getting caught, even if Poindexter clearly removes his mask right in front of the ticket booth.
Excuse me, miss. How much is it to enter this establishment?
Felix's act begins. He does some tricks, and helps the princess escape by turning the bag into a giant, indestructible bubble, floating Oriana away to the outside world. The escape party meets up with the scientists, who finally have Felix's bag. They calmly give it to him as if they forgot they ever even wanted it in the first place. The group treks onward. The hillbilly is captured temporarily in a gigantic tomato, and they enter a hare forest. Here, a bunch of creatures with detachable heads called headhunters exist. To be quite honest, they probably would have scared the living crap out of me as a kid.
It's the headhunter.
Felix saves the day by shooting hats out of his bag. Am I the only one who's confused? Then, they are suddenly at the castle, which is apparently Green Hill Zone. The Duke captures them all and offers to let them go if they tell him where the magic book is. They eventually reveal it and give it to the Duke. The only words in the whole book, however, are
Wisdom.
he is dissatisfied and reveals his giant robot, the Master Cylinder. Felix simply throws the Book of Good Morals at it, blowing it up, and destroying all of the other robots with it.
What did you do? I don't feel right. My army! I don't all the other way! You can't beat me! I'll be back.
Felix prepares to leave, but there's a problem. The transporter won't run if it has gold in it. The scientists were trying to smuggle gold out of the dimension, and are forced to leave it behind. Oriana then makes a joke about Felix having a heart of gold, then the movie ends with Felix's lips actually matching his vocals, for the first time in the whole freaking movie.
Righty-o!
The credits roll and we get two pretty good audio tracks.
Felix the cat, the wonderful, wonderful cat. Whenever he gets in a fix, he reaches into his bag of tricks. Felix the cat, the wonderful, wonderful cat. You'll laugh so much your sides will make your heart will go pit-pat. Watch your Felix, the wonderful cat.
It's really sad that the movie's ending is the best part. I really like Felix, but come on, nobody would call this movie great. The animation's fine, the music's fine, Felix's appearance is fine, but everything else is completely terrible. I give Felix the Cat, the movie, a 2.5 out of 10. It's simply not worth watching.